Brand new It's in the Game podcast here on the Ball is Life Podcast Network. I'm joined by my guy, I am Denny Blanco, Brandon Scoop B. Robinson. You can find the podcast on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and the Cruise Control Podcast Network on YouTube. You can follow me at Randy J. Cruz, Rendy, letter JCRUZ on both Instagram and Twitter. You can follow Scoop B on both IG and Twitter at Scoop B. And Denny Blanco. I am Denny Blanco on both Twitter and Instagram. Denny Blanco, my man, how you doing?
You know the vibes, your mama's favorite. Denny Blanco in the building. We're here to talk basketball. Scoopy's in here with us. And we go, it's a Friday, baby. It's a Friday.
Scoop B, my man, how you doing?
It's Friday. I'm chilling. God is good all the time. All the time, God is good, and I'm glad to be with you, Randy and Blanco. You told me that Blanco sent me, so I'm here.
That's right, man. Welcome. Definitely appreciate you coming on. I know you're a very busy guy in the craft that you have perfected in the last couple of years. Before we get into what's going on with the playoffs, I want to get a little story background about you and what you do and how long you've been doing it for. So you're a guy that I've been following on Twitter for quite some time. I actually met in person a few times at the Garden, at the beach, and just seeing the work that you've been able to do in this crowded space of people who want to report on sports and break news and stuff like that. I know it's very difficult, but in the lines of like the Wodes and the Shams and Stephen A. Smith of the world, it's very tough to be in that spot where you might have a breaking story, you might have some tidbits, and people may not want to be quick to respect that because you're not probably as known or whatever. So, one, how did you get in this space? Do you enjoy this space? And just kind of like how you've been able to you know tackle that so far.
Well, the good thing about what I do, and I think this is just a lesson for a lot of young people, is you got to be like a horse racer. You have to. I know it's cliche. You have to be a racing horse rather. You have to have your blinders on because there's a lot of people who want to do what you do, and the minute you start making decisions for you and yours, you begin to kind of upset people. So I don't do it for the acknowledgement. I actually love what I do. My journey began even before I started as a young kid. At 12 years old, I had a radio show with the Nets on AM radio.
Nice.
Net Slamming Planet. And this was during the era when John Calipari was head coach and vice president of basketball operations with the Nets. I auditioned to get the show. I was actually hired by Lou Lamoriello, who's now the GM who's the GM of the year with the New York Islanders. Sat in his office, and he took a liking to me. It was a show that was executive produced by Amy Shear as well as Chris Carino. But even before that foundation, I relate to you because I like how you look at wrestling and you look at basketball from a 90s perspective and forward and backwards. And so my journey with basketball at large began in two spots. It began in Harlem. And my uncle was a commissioner of citywide basketball. And yeah, so like anybody who came out of the city knew my Uncle Billy. Billy Rawls is his name. And so like Stephon Marbury, Kenny Smith, Mark Jackson, a myriad of other people. So that connection to basketball, I fell in love with it and during that time. My stepfather is from the west side of Chicago and introduced me to a bald-headed guy on television named Michael Jordan. And that combination there, plus, my family ran a sneaker store on 125th Street called The Athlete's Foot. And so I used to, as a kid, would see like Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler and Mike Tyson and Dominique Wilkins like do sneaker releases or at the store or just shop at the store, either or. So I was around athletes, celebrities at a young age. I think that's only part of it. I think it's relationships. I think what sets me apart personally from a lot of other people is genuine relationships. I didn't necessarily know everybody from the industry. That kind of happened over time, but I knew them from a local level, and then they carried over professionally. So, been in the game for a long. I was made for it. When you know your purpose in life, you just follow in alignment in that regard, and that's what I've been able to do, thankfully.
Right. Denny?
My mute was
Oh.
on. Listen. Yeah, my mute was
Welcome
on.
back.
Yeah. So yeah.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. My mute was on. Yeah, man, it's dope, Scoop B. It's dope that you you know, the avenue that you've taken to you know, to be where you are. It's just consistency and preparation, I would imagine, correct?
And a lot of sleepless nights. When Randy texted me this morning, yo, I'm gonna send you the link at 1:30. I was like, all right, because I had been up till about 6 o'clock this morning writing.
Damn.
Oh,
It was
damn.
Tory Lane's thing as it related to basketball because of J.R. Smith. So like, you know, I was texting J.R.'s brother last night getting quotes about that. I wrote about 4 or 5 different stories. I'm a senior writer at heavy.com. So like I had written about 4 or 5 different versions of that story about Tory Lane. So like I woke up and I set my alarm for 12 and I'm like, all right, I know I got to get ready at 1:30. I gave him my word. And then when my alarm went off, I was like, damn, I got to get
That's how it be sometimes. Man.
All the time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
All the time.
but I love what I do, man, and to be able to prosper during a pandemic where we're bored in the house and in the house bored. I mean, many people don't have that blessing and that luxury. So I genuinely don't take that for granted. I'm thankful every day I can wake up and I can do what I was called to do.
So like, real quick. So when you started to where you at now, how much you feel like you did the growth of you as a writer, as a professional, as a person, and then where are some areas you still feel like I gotta keep on doing this because no one's gonna give you anything. You know what I'm saying? You gotta earn it, you gotta work hard for it. But where do you feel like, you know what, if I can master this going forward, I could be at the top echelon when it comes to these kind of people?
I think honestly, the biggest growth portion for me has been just improving as a writer. I have to be honest with you. When I graduated college in 2011, nobody was knocking on my door, and that's what the experience that I had. I was living in my grandmother's basement, in the basement apartment. Oh, because like you had your own entrance. I had a kitchen. I had a living room. I had a walk-in closet, bathroom, but like I didn't have a stove. I didn't have an oven. I cooked with hot plates, crock pot, George Foreman grill, and a microwave.
That's talent. That's talent right there. That's
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? That's talent.
And so like I remember like the refrigerator that was down there, you know how you had the double door like fridge and freezer?
Mm-hmm.
So like the one side that was the refrigerator, it didn't work. The only thing I had on that side was batteries in the crisper for the vegetables. You put the batteries in there. That is so black. And then on the freezer side worked as the refrigerator. So like I would put all my I couldn't really get like Tostino pizza rolls or like you know like Eggo's waffles. So like I use that as the refrigerator. So like during those times I was living downstairs in my grandmother's basement. I was collecting food stamps. I was off and on unemployment and was an adjunct professor off and on in a couple different colleges. So like during that time, I was kind of like building my fan base by like telling the kids what I do. And I was still writing and freelancing at different places like Slam, Ebony Magazine, Jet Magazine. At one point, I freelanced at about 11 different publications. And what happened was for me, you know, it came a point where like I had developed a relationship with Jabril Peppers, who now plays for the Giants, when he was in high school. Like he would be in homeroom and I would be texting him, yo, what do you think about this, that, and the third? And he would give me a quote and I would write about it. And then like Kyrie Irving, I went to his basketball camp in 2013 when he was still a Cavs before the LeBron years, and they won a championship. And so like those two, you know, experiences kind of just opened doors, you know, relationship wise. I think for me, relationships have always been, you know, my calling card, if you will. And I just you know, utilize them. So the growth has been just growing as a man, financially, spiritually, emotionally. And, you know, I feel like I've put in a lot of work that some of my other counterparts maybe would not have entered that territory, and I legitimately rolled up my sleeves and did what I had to do. I've worked for free at different places over the years, the Source magazine, Respect magazine. Some of my big breaks came when, I was at CBS Radio and, I had a podcast that did well and would go viral for silly stuff that people would say. I think that's when I learned the word viral. Like Samaki Walker told me a story about how Kobe Bryant sucker punched him, over $100 while he was asleep on the Lakers team bus. And I'm like, yo, this is crazy. Like,
that's cold.
That's cold.
That's cold for you.
So, like over time, just learning keywords, headlines, how to tweet differently than the article headline that you write. Buddy of mine named Ashish Mehta at the Clutch Points put me on the game with that. So just relationships, man. I think I use this analogy often. Like LeBron James in 2020 should be competing with LeBron James in 2012 and 2013, and LeBron James in 2016. Comparatively, you should be a better version of yourself. And I'm just still growing. I haven't arrived. You've mentioned names like Woe, Sham, Stephen A. Smith. I know all those guys. I respect them. And I don't necessarily think I'm trying to be where they are. I'm trying to be the first Brandon Robinson, but I respect those
right.
You mentioned.
Right. Denny?
Scoop B. No, yeah, it's not gonna be the Woj bomb anymore. It's gonna be the no more Woj bomb. It's gonna be the Scoop B brings you the business bomb. Yeah. Speaking of scoops, what do you think is the biggest scoop that landed in your lap, or that you had to actually go out and get the information, and you were the only one that was privy to this information?
Mm-hmm.
I think over the last couple of years, so like I developed relationships, and one day I just woke up and I said, you know what, all these people, you can call them, you can text them, you can agents, general managers, the whole gamut. But like I said to myself, you're holding that information. Like, how do you disseminate that information? So I'll be very transparent with you. One of the biggest scoops that I actually got wrong actually helped my career. I had Kevin Durant joining the Los Angeles Lakers, and I did that September 17th, 2018, and I'll never forget it because that's my sister's birthday. What ended up happening was that tweet about Kevin Durant, was mentioned all over the news. It was on ESPN, it was in blogs. I don't regret it for this reason. I told you Kyrie was going to the Brooklyn Nets since last January, February. I told you that J.R. Smith was getting a workout with the Lakers. I told you that Paul George had a rotator cuff injury in April, and they didn't announce it until July. I ran into Paul George at a party in September out in Los Angeles, and he was like, yo, that was you? He goes, that was 100% correct. That just wasn't my story to tell. I told you last summer that D'Angelo Russell was going to join the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I had to sit and shit for a little bit because he was in a sign and trade for KD going to Brooklyn, and then trading deadline, he joined the Timberwolves. So, the one thing about, minus the KD story, which got me national attention, and I he said this, you only have to be right once.
Facts.
What I will tell you is, I told you about Space Jam 2 and LeBron going to the Lakers. There's a lot of things, but I think at first people don't take you seriously. And I think that's for a myriad of reasons, and I'll be very transparent with you. One, because they don't see an ESPN next to my name or a Bleach Report, they think, well, who is this guy? Who does he think he is?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other part of it is I'm a black male. And I think that oftentimes when you are who you say you are, people question it. And I think that over time, you just got to put your head down and just continue to flourish. And, that's what I'm doing. But I also think when you don't have to prove yourself, that pisses people off too.
100%. And one last thing, Randy, I was going to ask, the information you received, right, for the Kevin Garnett going to LA. Kevin Durant going to the Los Angeles Lakers, right? Mm-hmm. Did you got it from a source? So at this point, that source that gives you this information, do you continue to use said source because they were completely wrong and gave you information? or do you tell said source, listen, bruh, you were off, so I can't mess with you no more?
No, because they're the same person who told me about Paul George's rotator cuff.
Damn it! I mean, you can't be right all the time, but if you're gonna,
True.
so I get what you're saying, but if you have a source and you're going out there on a limb and putting, something that's exclusive that only you're supposed to know, but you want to, break, do a Woj bomb, scoop bomb, scoop bomb now. It's interesting that, you have these people that you trust and they built a relationship with you, but the information may be so-so.
Yeah, I think it's a vetting out process. So like sources come from a myriad of places. You go to parties that are industry parties, and you kind of meet people and there's numbers. They're familiar with you, you're familiar with them, and then there's a trial basis where they tell you things and you're like, oh, okay, and then you see it on TV like, whoa,
he was being serious.
Yeah, you like, for example, this over time, you just know. So I'll give you a perfect example that's like, while I'm not speaking in code. So Nate Robinson is supposed to be fighting on the undercard of the Mike Tyson fight. November 28th. It was originally supposed to be in September 12th. And I got a call. It wasn't from Nate. I'll be honest with you. It wasn't from Nate. I do know Nate. But the person who called me said, yo, I got some information that would actually benefit you. And this was during the time when Woj was actually suspended. They were going to actually shop this around the Woj, but he couldn't tweet, which I thought was interesting. You can't tweet, but you also can't write. Like it's a package deal.
Right. So
people will call Woj's or Shams or other people to tweet or break news. And during that time, it was brought to my table or to my attention that Nate Robinson was going to be boxing. So when the person called him, like, what? I was like, how do you know? They said because he's going to be on the undercard of a Mike Tyson Roy Jones Jr. fight. I'm like, wait, what? So, like, if I'm not mistaken, this was I don't remember dates specifically, but I remember time frames. So,
right,
it's going to be on. It's supposed to be streamed through Triller, and Snoop Dogg is supposed to be performing, as is somebody else. I can't think of who it is, but basically, they didn't want to break it before Snoop did the verses. So I think that was like a Wednesday or a Thursday. I can't remember. They wanted to break it on a Friday, but I think they wanted to give Snoop his day and then the next 2 days let that marinate so Mike Tyson could have his own news cycle. But when they told me that Mike Tyson was going to be fighting again, I was like, you're lying. He was like, B, I'm not lying to you. I said, well, how do you know?
Yep.
Because Nate had to sign a contract. Sometimes those things just make sense. So you're vetting, you're trying to figure out how, why, and all that other stuff. And the funny thing is, I knew, but I had to be quiet about it. Like, people began tweeting about it the day after the verses. And I'm like, yo, what's going on? So I ended up writing the story, and then Shams tweeted it, I tweeted it, I wrote the article. There's like so much stuff that happens behind the scenes that just over time, when you're right, when people see you, the light is on you, it just kind of just organically, happens.
That's dope.
So then, like, real quick, when you hear something like that, right? Obviously, you can't just put it out there after hearing one person tell you. So, for a reporter standpoint, how many people do you need to give you the same information before you say, you know what, this might be legit? Good people, question. 3, 4, 5 people before you feel comfortable enough to put it out there.
Good question, Randy.
Well, sometimes sources are players.
Well, true.
Some players tell you things. Sometimes.
Do you get smoke screens though? Sometimes you get smoke screens.
Yeah, they have an agenda too.
That's a thing. So, like, for example, I'm a brand ambassador for Denny Optical, which is the official sponsor of the Chicago Bulls. And I wear their glasses. And
there you go.
Shameless plug. So, like, there was a whole thing about the Bulls and coaching related to Jim Boylan and all those other things.
Right.
I'll just say, I'm speaking in code on this one. I will just say that there were reports about Zach LaVine as it related to Knicks, Nets, potential.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm still dissecting that. I've still had conversations with people about it. But on one side of the coin, I say to myself, was that a smokescreen because they really wanted Boylan out of there and the Bulls want LaVine to stay? Or is that a Thibodeau, Leon Rose thing? Like, is that something legit? So, so Ian Begley reported, that's my dude. I'm not questioning his reporting, just like he may not publicly question mine.
That's the GOAT right there, Ian Begley.
But what I'll say is, soon thereafter, the Bulls did eventually fire Jim Boylan, who I actually have respect for. I know, and I like his old school philosophy. It just wasn't clicking with players. So when you talk about smoke screens, those do exist. I'm seeing one now with Karl Anthony Towns as it relates to the Timberwolves. Here's a hypothetical as I'm still piecing stuff together. Is it a hypothetical that Zach LaVine wants to go to the Knicks or the Nets, more so the Knicks, and that if the Timberwolves don't do what they need to do, Towns, who is a Piscataway, New Jersey native, would maybe want to find his way to the New York Knicks? Or does Towns stay in Minnesota? The Timberwolves use that first pick to try to ship it to Phoenix in some way.
Devin Booker.
Or, what'd you say?
Devin Booker?
Or Devin Booker. So, like, there's so many layers and layers. I'm not saying either way. I'm just saying as you're processing things, that's what you're wondering. So, like, smoke screens do exist, but the NBA is such a small, close-knit community. You ask enough people, 4, 5, 6 people, you put things into perspective. So we'll talk about Minnesota, New York, Chicago. That's a lot of road.
Yep.
But I think I answered your question.
Well, as a Knicks fan, selfishly, I would want Zach LaVine. I would want Karl Towns. I would want Devin Booker. You know, if I can get Chris Paul and Greek Freak, I want them all, Brandon. I want them all in New York.
Come on, Scoop. You see? Come on, man.
So, like I said, he's been a Net fan since KD signed with them last year. Ain't playing no games. All up to Kevin Durant. I wanted Kevin Durant here. I wanted Kyrie here. I think they should stop asking Durant about the Knicks. It's over with.
I'll be very transparent with you.
He won't believe you. He won't believe you.
I do believe.
If I'm telling you, you know I'm not capping.
I believe you. Me wanting Kyrie here to more like, yo, I think it could be realistic. I never felt the vibe that Kyrie would come to New York. Knicks. He'll come to New York, to Brooklyn.
Yeah, you have to specify. What I'll tell you about that is, while I told you about the story about Kevin Durant and the whole Lakers thing, I later found out about 2 weeks prior to my report about Kevin Durant, and I said this on another show the other day. 2 weeks prior to that, KD and Kyrie actually went on vacation together. So we're talking 2018.
Banana boat.
And that was the Nets were discussed at length. And, Kyrie did consider in December of 2018 re-signing with Boston. But then he changed his mind. The Nets was something that was heavily considered like January, February of 2019. And, KD, from what I know, was on the fence about, like, the Knicks was something he was considering. But KD, so free agency last year started like that Sunday. I think they did it like a day earlier. It was like June 30th. From what I'm told, KD made that decision about the Nets that Thursday. I got a call. He made a decision that Thursday. Sunday was more of an exercise in futility in that regard. Kyrie did consider coming back to Boston. He ended up changing his mind.
Right.
And, I tell people all the time with the whole Boston thing, when he had that Q&A with season ticket holders in Boston, and he was like, I'll return if you'll have me. And I tell people all the time, that wouldn't hold up in New York State small claims court or New York City small claims court. So these are not depositions. These are not indictments. Guys do have the right to change their minds.
Mm-hmm.
But KD and Kyrie, I'll tell you, I knew it was a package deal. I actually spent some time with the two of them at a Jordan party in Charlotte during All-Star weekend. And we were like Tory. I was about to say Tory Lanez. No, he didn't. What's the guy that has the McDonald's sandwich at
Travis Scott.
Travis Scott.
Travis Scott. That's when I was at a Jordan party. Everybody and their mama was there. Bill King was there. Fabulous was there. DJ Khaled was there. Blake Griffin, Mark Cuban. Like it was a who's who, and I had the honor. I was invited to the Jordan party. I don't care if you were Obama. If you didn't have a ticket, you weren't getting in. And I was standing there with KD and Kyrie, and they were like inseparable that whole night. And we were talking about politics. We were talking about, the moves at the time we were making. And, I pulled KD to the side, and I said, I don't know if you, like he and I have had conversation over the years. I said, I pulled him to the side. I said, yo, I don't know if you're really, really familiar with me, but I dropped a story about you. This was January, and this was September when I got the story about you, potentially joining a specific team. Are you aware of it? He goes, nah, I don't pay attention to the news like that. I said, KD, I'm going to ask you again. I said, and you asked him, I said, I dropped a story about you concerning you picking a specific team. I said, I'm not going to press you about that because that's not what we're here for right now. I said, however, whatever you decide to do, I wish you well. And he looked at me, he smiled, and he goes, you're welcome. So that moment, as far as even though I had it wrong, to be honest with you, it opened a lot of doors. But at that moment when I was at that party, I left that party saying to myself, whatever the one decides to do, the other's going to follow. And then you saw during All-Star Weekend that there was that video where KD and Kyrie were like, two contracts? And I said, that was a smoke screen to the Nets and the Knicks. And that's when all that Nets-Knicks stuff was fueled. Mm-hmm. But I know that whole weekend, those guys were inseparable. They I don't want to put all their business out there, but I'll just say that I know that that All-Star weekend and that vacation that they took in 2018, was that banana boat fruition.
Right.
They both need to get checks actually fined from the NBA for player tampering, right? Player tampering, banana boat player tampering. You say again, Scoop?
I was not player tampering if neither one of them were Nets teammates.
See, it's a different conversation for a different day. What I would say is, if we're not both on the same team, so Kyrie's on Boston and Kevin's on the Golden State Warriors, right? At the time. You're colluding to come together as one. Same way that banana boat came together as one at the USA games. They came together as one. So I'm just like, these players.
Are you telling me that they were depending on Russia to win the election?
No.
What I'll tell you is,
oh man,
it's funny you bring that up because I have a digital show weekly with Heavy.com called Heavy Live with Scoop B, and we had Michael Redd on a couple of weeks ago, and he was on the 2008 Redeem team, and so we actually talked about Buddy Ball, and he told me that at the point of where he was in 2008, you figured the OGs on that team were like Jason Kidd, Michael Redd, Kobe. And the younger guys were like Darren Williams, Dwight Howard, LeBron.
I think Anthony Davis was on that team too, if I'm not mistaken. The rookie.
Was he a college student at that point, or was he?
I may have to correct myself.
College, yeah.
Yeah, it was still, but he was still. I remember seeing him on that team though, with Kobe, LeBron, D-Wade, Jason. Yeah, but he wasn't. No playing time. But what happened exactly?
So basically, we talked about Buddy Ball, and he was like, Kobe wasn't really a fan of it at the point where it was like he and Kobe didn't really want to work out with other people, and who wants you to. Why do you want your opponents to see your moves? He said, but when you look at LeBron, Wade, Bosh, they were like inseparable. They were like friggin' frat. And
We're buddies. We're
and
brothers.
at the end of the day, like that was kind of the beginning of just everybody's friend. Going with the Bird Magic era of we hate each other, going with the eras of, the Isaiahs, the Michaels. It's just it's a different era. And I think that KD Kyrie situation is just so, it's a mystery because many people aren't in. Versus LeBron. Like you look at Wade, Bosh, LeBron, like one of the things I have to give credit to Stephen A. Smith for was, if you remember, Chris Broussard gets credit for breaking the LeBron to Miami deal because Stephen A. Smith's contract ran out but Stephen A. Smith was writing from his website, and Wade was feeding Stephen A. Smith information. So, and during that time when, they didn't renew his contract, he ended up, just doing stuff on The View and Fox News and raised his profile, and then came along Skip Bayless, and then, ESPN renewed his contract. I give credit where credit's due, but like, the power of the media, the power of people developing relationships, for as much hate as he gets, he still got the scoops on what was going on in free agency. And, that's the power of good reporting and picking your spots.
Yo, can you believe, before we move on, that was 10 years ago already? The whole Miami LeBron, I'm taking my talent to South Beach. At this point right now, 10 years ago, they're in like training camp. LeBron, D. Wade, and Bosh.
The Heatles.
Man, the Heatles, yeah, man.
Did you know that Donovan Mitchell was one of the kids from the Boys and Girls Club that was sitting in the room when LeBron made his decision?
No, really?
I heard about that. Yeah, I heard about that.
Wow. Small rooms, yes.
So where we at now, Scoop, with players like a Chris Paul, like a Giannis? I mean, the next year or so is going to be, where's Giannis going to go? Is he going to stay? Should he go somewhere else? You got Draymond Green live on TNT saying, well, I think Giannis should play for a different team, play for a winner, and Devin Booker should play for a winner. So to Denny's point, that's a tampering right there, like telling the world.
And he's fine.
Yeah, he got fined too. So Devin Booker, will he stay in Phoenix? I know a lot of teams want him. Draft coming up, so they might dangle a couple draft picks to try to get him. Chris Paul, Giannis, anybody else I'm missing that could be like in that realm of like, and Davis?
So he's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Chicago with AD when he did a function with his Visions High School. Basically, he was asked in a Nike function. It was a Q&A, and he was asked if he would re-sign with the Lakers. And he goes, "Oh, would you ever consider coming back home to Chicago?" He's from the South Side, and he said, "Well, I am an unrestricted free agent in 2020," and so that was a reporter's dream to tweet that out and get hits. But then on top of it, I think I don't have an answer to the AD thing. I think the AD thing is very complex. But this is what I'll say. This is a hot take. I think that when you look at Anthony Davis, okay, say the Lakers do win, right? And say free agency comes up. This would be the epitome of Kawhi leaving Toronto or not leaving Toronto.
Right.
And I think at face value, we don't see it like that because the season is still in progress.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming the Lakers win, anything can happen. They're up 3-1, but you know what happens with Denver. I'm gonna put it like that because people are watching. Say they win.
Yep.
Who's to say that he doesn't leave? Who's to say he stays? I think it's one of those decision things. I think it's because when you look at the Western Conference gets more competitive next season. The Clippers are going to be better.
Mm-hmm.
The Lakers still will have LeBron. It was competitive.
Utah.
I mean, but I think
Denver, yeah.
I think at the end of the day, it's still going to come down to the Clippers, the Lakers, and the Warriors. The Warriors will be a top 4 team in the Western Conference, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you look at the East, you look at AD, and you say, well, why would he join
Chicago,
right? So that's a great question. I feel like LeBron joined the Western Conference before it got to be the Wild Wild West. Again, this is a hot take. This is a combination of things I've heard, I've seen, and just using my 2 eyes. You look at the Devin Booker situation, people that I have spoken to, there's talk about, the Timberwolves, moving their first pick. Just like there's talk of, Toronto wanting to get better. There's chatter. Rashad Phillips was on my podcast, the Scoopy Radio podcast, back in the spring, and said that, Toronto really, really likes LaMelo Ball, and they're looking to make a move in which there could be a potential three-team trade between the Philadelphia 76ers, the Warriors, and the Toronto Raptors, which could potentially bring in Kyle Lowry to Philly, LaMelo Ball to Toronto, and would ship Ben Simmons to Golden State. Now, if you hold Elton Brand, a guy I respect at his word, not trading Embiid or Simmons. So that's what he says. I'm gonna hold him at his word. But at the same time, I know that Philly is looking to get better. I know Philly needs a coach.
Yeah.
I know, has some questions to answer as it relates to Van Vliet, Serge Ibaka, and more. So we'll see what happens. As it relates to, I think I answered all your questions. Giannis and Chris Paul. So I've been reporting over the last couple of weeks as it relates to Chris Paul. There are at least 8 teams, and I've tweeted it. I haven't had my afternoon coffee, but I know that there are teams that are interested in Paul, namely the New York Knicks, the Phoenix Suns, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Denver Nuggets, and a couple other teams. It's on Twitter, but I know that the Knicks have lined a trade that they would like to offer to the Oklahoma City Thunder. I did reach out to Sam Presti on both of his phones. I have not heard back from him yet. But what I will say to you is that I think that the best fit for Chris Paul would be the Milwaukee Bucks, and I know that in a meeting that Giannis Antetokounmpo did have with the Bucks, it was a lunch meeting with his mother, his brother, and Lazary, who was the majority owner of the Bucks. I know that he was not looking to find a long-term deal unless the Bucks were able to make some type of move in the offseason, to get them more help. And Chris Paul was one of the names that was on that list.
Right.
So, do you give up Eric Bledsoe, who has 2 or 3 years left on his deal?
Yeah. Yeah, you do.
We've seen enough, bro.
Yeah.
We've seen enough, bro.
So that's kind of like we're in this either or stage right now. You can get this or you can get with that. So those are that's the chatter that that's being had around the league, and we'll see what happens. You look at the Brooklyn Nets. Drew Holiday is another guy that is a guy that the Nets have interest in. The Clippers have interest in him. The Sixers have interest in him. The Bucks have interest in him. So if you don't get Chris Paul on the Bucks side, do you go after Drew Holiday? I think Drew Holiday is one of the most underrated point guards in the league. Almost Andre Miller-like underrated.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that statement. Totally agree.
So Scoop. So I know you mentioned Aaron Davis. If he leaves LA, Chicago is up there, but why just not come to the Knicks, bro? What's up? Why go to Chicago? Why go to Chicago? Come to New York.
He almost did. So Davis gave a list of teams.
That's right. Tell him. New York.
So
no, it's not. It's not.
So, Andy, I don't have any sources. So, so what I'll tell you is, Anthony Davis did give a list of teams way back. that he would like to join. He gave that list to the Pelicans, and then that was like a big roadmap. I'm using that word a lot today. It's a big roadmap of just Brooklyn. There was a point where Denver did reach out to the Pelicans as it related to Anthony Davis, and what I'll say is at the trading deadline when all that stuff went crazy with Magic, Del Demps, and just everything. The Knicks was on that list, and the Knicks did try to last summer go after Davis, and basically they didn't have enough. Kevin Knox has been dangled like a carrot forever.
True.
No one wants that carrot, bro. No one wants that vegetable. It's a vegetable, right? It's not a fruit. It's a vegetable.
It's a vegetable, yeah.
No one wants that carrot.
Me personally, I think Kevin Knox fits best with the Thunder. Me personally, just as a basketball watcher, because I think that the Knicks aren't going to highlight him the right way in the sense I just think he can be a star. And I don't know. I think he can be a star on a young Thunder team that's still trying to find their way that has a lot of assets already. The only thing is that the Knicks going to absorb that $35 to $40 million contract by way of Chris Paul. People like playing devil's advocate, right? So I've heard that next season Melo might decide that he may want to I might want to put it like this. Melo's number 7.
Right.
When he decides it's his last year, I've heard, wink, wink, that he will release 7 of his best shoes that he'll wear in his farewell season that he kind of wants. I've heard that. So when he decides that's what he's going to do, it'll be great. I don't know that he's joining the Knicks for all implications. He's a Blazer moving forward. But how cool would it be? Again, suggesting how cool would it be in his career as a Knick and make that situation right?
Right.
Did I phrase that correctly?
130%. I agree with everything you just said. His farewell tour should be with the Knicks. He should have at least 1 year where he's wearing the Knicks 7 and he's saying goodbye, just like your Kobe. I think he deserves it. I mean, obviously, Paul Pierce didn't get that, but that's neither here nor there. The fact remains is that Carmelo is a Hall of Famer for his ballot, in my opinion, and I think that's exactly Scoop. I think you're onto something.
But the only thing I'm reporting is the sneaker part. So all you aggregators watching, don't play with me.
Clarity from Scoop B. Clarity from Scoop B.
When he decides to hang them up, he will wear 7 of his best sneakers in different colorways throughout his career. I have that on full accord with and so the Knicks would be cool to see. We're talking hypotheticals. The Lakers would be cool to see. And I think you look at the Dwight Howard situation with the Lakers. If he leaves, the Lakers could make that right by bringing in Carmelo Anthony. So there's a lot there. So we'll see. If Paul comes to the Knicks, it will be cool to see he and Carmelo in New York together. That's something that fans want. I know Melo's laying low, and I think he said all the right things with Portland. And so Portland will be cool to see, but I think Melo and Dwight Howard are in similar situations contractually. I think they've raised their value, and we'll see what happens.
Right. So before I let you go, Scoop, the playoffs are still going on. If you haven't seen the show the last couple of weeks, so this is Denny to my right, whatever, told me that Denver was going to win in 7. Denver. I seen on Twitter, Denver has the LA right where they want them down 3-1, whatever. So right now, he still currently has Denver in 7. I had LA in 6. I have Boston in 7. He had Miami in 6. So right now, he's winning that battle. I'm winning the Western Conference battle, and we're possibly on the road to a Lakers Miami Heat. NBA Finals. The storylines are there. LeBron, Heat, Pat Riley, Lakers. It's a good sell. Even if you get LA and Boston, it's still got the story, tradition, rivalry between those two teams. But if it happens to be LA and Miami, who wins that series? How many games? And could it be a potential, like, who's a better matchup for LA, Miami, or Boston to kind of bring them to at least a game 6 or a game 7?
I think Miami and LA would be matched perfectly, but so would Boston, LA.
Mm-hmm.
The series is still going on, like you said, and with the Western Conference's darlings and the Denver Nuggets being what they are, you gotta. It's not over until the clock says 0-0-0-0. The Lakers are 1 win away from making it to the finals. They got 3 tries to get it done, and so I don't. But I if I'm the Lakers, I'm trying to close it out. I've used this analogy on a myriad of shows. The Denver Nuggets are that 4th cup of wine.
4th cup.
4th. That 4th glass.
What happens? Yeah, what happens after the fourth glass of wine, Scoop? What happens?
It ain't the best part of waking up with phobias in the cup. I'll tell you that.
You know what I mean? Like, hey, fourth drink of wine, man. 4th glass.
Yeah, if I'm, well, you look like Ray Ramon 4 times.
Yeah, 4-time champion.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. No, listen. I was telling Randy. I said, listen. I picked the Lakers from the beginning of the season. I picked the Lakers from the beginning of the playoffs. It is what it is. I just don't like a team getting hot at the right time. They've been through down 3-1 twice. They know who to get the ball to when clutch, when it's clutch time, when it's money time, they know where to go. They have no confusion. Everybody's playing their own roles. They're running on all cylinders. And I'm looking at the Lakers box score, and I'm seeing consistently what I'm supposed to see from the Lakers, which is LeBron and actually AD doing work. Go ahead, Randy, talk to me.
So hold up, Scoop, real quick. So mind you, the backstory is we did a preview show for the playoffs, right?
Right.
So originally, Blanco had LA and Milwaukee in the finals, right?
Right.
He sees Denver taking down Utah down 3-1. He sees Denver taking down the Clippers down 3-1. We did a show that night after the game 7. So my thing, if you have a prediction, you stay with it, you rock with it, right?
Yeah.
Your man right here changed course on the fly that night and said, you know what? Forget all that. I got Denver in 7. So he no Milwaukee. I got that. LA was still in it. He said, no, scrap that. I got Denver in 7. So his whole prediction is invalid right now.
Well, listen, I just want, before Scoop, I just want to let you know that, listen, I got some new data. I've never seen a Serbian play like that before, ever in my life. And I've never seen the army that Denver has. And I just had to change course a little bit, Scoop. I apologize.
I gotta tell you a secret. David Fizdale just enters the chat. Take that for data.
It's data, baby. It's data, baby. Come on, y'all. I can't argue. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't want to bet against the King and Anthony Davis, which is exactly what I'm doing, right? I'm betting against those two because I don't believe in really the rest of the Lakers. I really don't believe in them. They haven't shown me anything to believe in. To be really honest and truthful with it, okay?
Well, listen,
go ahead, Randy.
This really should be 2-2.
Oh, now you want to talk about what really should have happened?
Nah,
okay,
it should
talk
be 2-2.
to me.
It should be 2-2.
Talk to me. Thank you.
I agree with that.
Thank you. Denver's not getting beat by the Lakers. Denver is beating themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Scoop.
And I grew up in the Black Baptist church, and a song that my sister sings when she's on her solo is a song by the gospel artist, Pamela Mann.
Pamela Mann, yes.
You the King.
Yes.
I think when you look at the Lakers this year, I think they are the most underdogged first seed team in recent history.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you look at first seeds, I take it back to the last few years. You look at in the Eastern Conference, for example, the Atlanta Hawks, the Boston Celtics were first seed teams, and they both lost to a LeBron James-led Cleveland Cavaliers team. Just because you first doesn't mean you're going to finish that way.
Right.
And I think that when you look at the trajectory of the Lakers this season, they've had a few things going for them. Number one, everybody on that team has so much riding on them winning. You know, Marshall Falk was on the Heavy Live with Scoopy show last month, and he said they got like all the rejects. You know, like Dwight Howard,
White, J.R. Smith.
You know, even Jason Kidd, who had the credentials in some people's eyes and Rob Pelinka's eyes, you know, to be the head coach, but you know, they brought in Frank Vogel, you know,
Deion Waiters.
So like, I feel like this team, they've got some grit to them in a way that maybe the Bucks didn't have. And so I remember back in February. During All-Star Weekend in Chicago, I literally sat in a Neiman Marcus dressing room and did an interview with Troy Daniels, nothing like that. Because I already know. So like, he was doing like a function with Neiman Marcus for like fashion, and I needed a quiet area to take out my recorder and do this interview. And one of the things that he said, Troy Daniels is now a member of the Denver Nuggets, and you know, when I sat down with Troy, I talked about the notion that he might get, you know, cut, and they ended up, you know, cutting him to bring in the Morris twin, and you know, but one of the things that he said that I'll take with me was the Lakers are the most underdog first seed, and he said the Lakers don't fear the Clippers.
Right.
Thing about the Clippers in that situation is, when I talked about the adversity, like the Lakers didn't have the luxury of load management. The Lakers dealt with injuries to DeMarcus Cousins. They had to re-sign Kentavious Caldwell-Pope because they didn't get Kate. I mean,
Avery Bradley got hurt too,
and then Avery Bradley didn't come to the bubble. So then, and then the other thing is, sometimes when it's your time, it's your time. And I think as much as people understate it, and I don't think they should use this for Kobe for clicks, but I do think that the Kobe situation is a motivating factor. When I talked to Troy Daniels, he told me the story about how the Lakers found out about Kobe Bryant's death on the airplane. And he said that they were, if you recall, they were all on a road trip, on the East Coast road trip from Martin Luther King Day through, you know, January 5th. I was with the Lakers on the night of January 25th when LeBron broke Kobe's record at the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia. And this is something that I always take with me. LeBron yells after after that game, "Yo, we're not going home tonight. We flying home tomorrow." If the Lakers had flown home that night, because by the time that game was over and media availability was what it was midnight. Because it was an 8 o'clock game. I wonder if LeBron would have had the chance to have that phone conversation with Kobe the night before. That last conversation that LeBron had with Kobe, the way it's been described, to me, was like some Jedi mind aerobics. Daniel, son, Mr. Miyagi. And so when you go from that to the next day, God rest his soul, the helicopter accident happens, and the Lakers on a plane, and then you hearing, you know, the way it was told to me, Troy Daniels said that Dwight Howard's yelling, yo, Kobe's gone. And people are like, man, shut up. And then, you know, people are pulling up their phones and having a conversation. And then the way it was told to me, and this is when I really think that the Lakers kind of locked in, the way it was told to me as the plane was landing and everybody was upset and was crying, Vogel places his hand on every player on the Lakers, and he's laying hands on them and he's praying. Me hearing that story, and I heard it on record from Troy Daniels, and I've heard it from other members of the Lakers as well in conversation. To me, I think that was so powerful, and I think sometimes when it's your time and when things are divinely orchestrated the way it is, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm just a fan of alignment. I think it would be great for basketball, just like I think it would be great for basketball if the Celtics were able to miraculously find a way to overcome this 3-1 deficit, because I think as much as people, as I'm praying in the benediction, this is what I'll say. As much as we've been bored in the house and in the house bored and stuck in the house, and people have made statements about this not being a real championship because it's in the bubble. How great would it be for basketball purists to see basketball for its rivalry? The Lakers have how many championships? The Celtics have how many championships? If the Lakers are able to win a championship this year, they'd be able to win it for Kobe. 1, 2, they'd be able to even it up with the Celtics, and 3, it really would give basketball fans some quantity and quality.
Right.
So, I think if it's a Celtics-Lakers matchup, it will be a great matchup for basketball purists. If it's not, it's still a storyline of assuming the Lakers go to the finals, LeBron playing against his former team, LeBron versus Riley. Riley used to be a head coach of the Lakers. Just all of those different factors. Then you're going to see on social media Dwayne Wade and LeBron taking majors. It's going to be fun either way. But the basketball purist in me wants to see Lakers Celtics.
Denny Blanco.
Listen, this time spent is dope. Just hearing the information from you. So you obviously want to see the Lakers and Boston. I'm looking at Lakers and the Heat. I'm looking out. I want to see that kind of what energy that comes about with Pat Riley and LeBron and Miami being a team full of dogs versus obviously the Lake Show. But once again, the Lakers are up 3-1. So Scoop, we're gonna see what the Denver Nuggets. My Denver Nuggets.
Wow, my Denver Nuggets. Wow.
We're going to see what my Denver Nuggets do.
He said my Denver
Nuggets. My Denver Nuggets. We're going to see what my Denver Nuggets do. But when you mentioned lastly, when you mentioned the Lakers, I think it's manifest destiny. Manifest destiny. It's like the Lakers, Kobe passing, AD hitting the shot, yelling out Kobe. The same year they win a chip, beat whoever they beat. I think just in general, them winning the championship will be a nice pin to this season. And finally, I was telling Randy also, they need to keep the regular season, the arenas, just like they are on the bubble. Okay, I was telling Randy earlier, and you could mind you. Let me be specific, Scoop. Let me be specific now. There are 4 rows that they've moved. There are a lot of plays that wouldn't have happened if those 4 rows were there. Is that true or false? Am I going crazy? Remember the Jimmy Butler, the save he was going out of bounds, he saved it, brought it back in, and came all the way back in and then got a dunk? Like, that doesn't happen in regular season.
I think he's referring to the amount of space you have around the court, where it's not like the front row. You have all this space right here. If you go back into the arenas, the NBA players should have all this space around the court, so there's no camera guys, no ball boys, stuff like that. Just like
makes
from that perspective.
Yeah, it makes the basketball smoother. Go ahead.
It's going to be interesting to see what life is like when. I don't like to use the word new normal. I'll just say it's going to be interesting to see what life is like. Like for the last 6 months, we haven't gone to the movies. Do we have partitions like at the movie theater? You're thinking about Beyonce, weren't you? When I said, but seriously, like, what is it? What is it going to be like? It's like,
I don't know.
Who wants to go to the movie? Me personally, I'm not really feeling it.
Nah, me either.
I do want to see basketball the way, like I said, I have no problem with that's the other thing too. With basketball arenas, they shrink the people. Then it's going to be VIP. Then it's going to be like, you have to be important to get into the arena. You can't just be a Joe Schmo fan. But at the same time too, I think just the way they spaced it out for basketball, for the skills, just to be able to save a basketball, go out of bounds, and not worry about spraining your ankle or hurting your neck. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a new day. But Scoop, you're the man 50 grand, baby.
That's right. I want to thank you, Scoop, for coming on. You can follow Scoop on Twitter and Instagram at ScoopB. You can follow Denny Blanco at I am Denny Blanco on both Instagram and Twitter. And, for me, I'll close out with this. So, trying to be like Scoop, right? Trying to get some breaking news and shit. So I've heard that if it's Lakers in Miami in the finals, and the Lakers lose to Miami, I heard that LeBron will be taking his talents back to South Beach.
That's what you heard. All right, we'll see.
His source is trash. His source is trash.
A player told me. Right, School? A player told me.
Unknown player. Plays for the CBA, Chinese basketball.
Former player.
My new thing is like people will say to me, "Yo, Scoop, did you hear this? Is this true?" And I'm like, "Who am I to tell somebody they wrong?" Like, and so if that's what you heard, hey man,
nah, LeBron will retire a Laker, so that's how it should be. Where else are you going? He ain't coming to.
He's going to the Knicks.
That's right. Knicks. That's right. That's the final team. That's the final team.
I think LeBron is holding out to play one season with his son, so he can do the King Griffey Jr. thing.
I totally agree with that. I totally agree.
I agree. I
So
totally agree.
Who says he doesn't go back to Cleveland for 1 year and then retires at Cleveland?
Right.
I agree with that.
I like that. We'll see. Denny, Blanco, Scoop B, thank y'all, and I appreciate it.
Gentlemen, take care.
Later.